Back from our lunch break, and I'm calling back to order the June CBC regular monthly meeting. We left off, and we had just tabled resolution number 78-2024. We are now on resolution number 79-2024. This is a resolution removing and appointing tax commissioners. I will start at the second whereas the Comanche Constitution, Article 5, Section 1, provides that the supreme governing body of the nation is the Tribal Council, and whereas the Comanche Tribal Council enacted a General Revenue and Taxation Act, the Tax Act, by resolution on April 15th, 1995, and whereas the Tax Act establishes a tax commission that shall consist of 9 enrolled tribal members who are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the Business Committee, and whereas the Tax Commission must consist of at least 4 members of the Comanche Business Committee, and the chairman of the Comanche Nation is authorized to participate as an ex officio member of the Tax Commission if not otherwise appointed as a member of the Commission. And whereas the Tax Act provides that appointment or removal from the Tax Commission shall have no force or effect until a written resolution has been filed for record in the official tribal records. And whereas former Chairman Mark Wolmavoya and former Vice Chairman Cornell Pee Wee Wardy served as tax commissioners during their time in office. And whereas an election was held on May 17th and 18th, and Forrest Tadanipa was elected chairman, and Diana Gale Doyabai-Sovo was elected as vice chairman. And whereas Chairman Tadanipa and Vice Chairman Doyabai-Sovo were sworn into office on May 24th, 2024, and whereas at the Tax Commission meeting on May 30th, 2024, Vice Chairman Doyabai-Sovo was appointed to the Tax Commission and Chairman Tadanipa was appointed ex officio. Now therefore be it resolved, the former Chairman Mark Wolmavoya and former Vice Chairman Cornell Pee Wee Wardy are hereby removed from the Tax Commission, and be it further resolved that Comanche Business Committee hereby ratifies and accepts the appointment of Vice Chairman Doyabai-Sovo and ex officio appointment of Chairman Tadanipa to the Tax Commission.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve resolution number 79-2024 by Committeeman number 2, Ross Carrara.
Second.
Second by Committeewoman number 1, Hazel Tashaqua. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Next resolution, and this is the final resolution, but we do have a couple other agenda items, but the final resolution is resolution number 80-2024, a resolution regarding supervision of the tax administrator and tax commission employees. And I will start at the second whereas the Comanche Constitution, Article 5, Section 1, provides that the supreme governing body of the nation is the Tribal Council, and whereas the Comanche Tribal Council enacted a General Revenue and Taxation Act, the Tax Act, by resolution on April 15th, 1995, and whereas the Tax Act establishes a tax commission, defines tax administrator as the business manager and/or operations manager of the commission, and authorizes the tax commission to hire employees, and whereas on July 29th, 2019, a memorandum was signed by 3 Comanche Business Committee members purporting to remove the Tax Commission from the direct supervision of the tribal administrator and place supervision under the executive branch of the CBC. And whereas on August 3rd, 2019, the CBC passed, and there's a typo, sorry, this should say a resolution that gave, or a motion, it should say, a motion that gave the executive branch of the CBC direct supervision over the Tax Commission. And whereas on October 7th, 2023, the CBC passed a motion to, quote, put the Tax Commission back under the tribal administrator for day-to-day oversight responsibilities. And whereas the CBC wishes to clarify the reporting structure and oversight of the tax administrator and Tax Commission employees. Now therefore be it resolved that the tax administrator is subject to the supervision of the Tax Commission, and the Tax Commission employees are subject to the supervision of the tax administrator. And be it further resolved that notwithstanding the foregoing, all Tax Commission employees, including the tax administrator, must subject requests for vacation, time off, and similar payroll requests to Human Resources Department for approval. So this is just a clarifying resolution because there's been some movement of the tax commission supervision authority around. So just trying to clarify, the employees report to the administrator reports to the commission reports to the CBC, is what this is trying to do. Any questions?
No, I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve resolution number 80-2024 by Vice Chairwoman Diana Doyavai-Sovo, second by Committeeman number 2, Ross Carrara. Any discussion?
We do have discussion on the fourth whereas.
1, 2, 3, 4, yeah.
Because they go through HR, through the tribe, that process is handled through HR.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I mean, I understand that the Tax Act was written in 1995, and that just, it makes it seem like they're gonna hire their own, because they don't have HR, they follow the tribe's HR.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think the intent was just to say that they will pay them with their own money.
You could say through the HR process in office after your,
How about if we amend the second, be it further resolved clause to just say, maybe,
Comanche Nation Human Resources.
yeah, they're subject to all Comanche Nation human resources
Insert that.
policies or something. Does that work for you guys?
For that fourth whereas, it needs to state, whereas to the Tax Act establishes a tax commission, defines tax administrator as the business manager and/or operations manager of the commission, and authorizes the tax commission to hire employees. So we need to change and authorizes tax commission to hire employees. That needs to be.
Do you want to say subject to Comanche Nation human resources?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Vice Chairwoman as the move-in, are you okay with that?
yes.
All right, and Mr. Carrara, you're all right? Okay, so the motion has been amended to approve resolution number 80-2024 as amended to clarify that the tax commission employees are hired through the government HR.
Chairman,
Yep,
Edward Tallwall III, tribal member. I just had a question, and I may have misinterpreted or misheard it, but there was something in there that was written and said executive branch of the tribal government. I don't know that it's defined or stated anywhere in particular what the executive branch of the tribal government is, because we're not formed like the federal government. There's an executive branch in the federal government. I've never heard it defined as executive branch within the tribal government. So if there could just be some clear clarification,
He's just
about
cleaning-
executive branch.
He's just
because
cleaning
it
up,
could be-
he's cleaning up some, as that part stated.
Yeah,
There was a memo written, and it was, it meant for executive officers. So that
Okay.
would have been the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary treasurer.
okay.
And
That's
so
what I was.
That's all this resolution is doing, is just
Yep.
cleaning up from, it lists the dates of the action, and this is just cleaning up all of that.
yeah, it's a point well taken, that there
Yeah.
isn't an executive branch, and that language is just quoting the prior action, which is why we're trying to clarify
Okay.
exactly what the reporting structure is.
Okay, so, and then, my understanding, and like I said, I probably did not hear it correctly. So would the tax administrator, tax commission be reporting to the officers of the CBC or the
To the
tribal
CBC as a whole.
administrator?
To the CBC as a whole.
CBC.
Oh, the CBC as a whole?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, and my apologies for mishearing it.
Other questions? Other discussion?
You're adding, be further resolved with the Comanche Nation, reading that as well? Comanche Nation Human Resources Department.
Did you two want the, be it further resolved to also incorporate all the Comanche Nation human resources and not just vacation, time off, and payroll?
To be streamlined, I think
Should it
it'd be
be-
in our best interest to add, making sure that they're following the HR
Okay.
manual
All right,
in all
so,
So you
aspects.
can actually add to adhere to all the Comanche Nation Human Resources policies and procedures?
yep.
Yes.
All right, so the proposal is to amend that second, be it further resolved, to say that notwithstanding the foregoing, all tax commission employees, including the tax administrator, are subject to all human resources,
Comanche Nation
Comanche Nation human resources policies and procedures. Does that work for you two?
Yes.
All right, that worked for the movement in the second?
Yes.
All right. Any other further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Abstentions,
Was there,
resolution
was there a
passes.
first and a second?
Yes.
There's a couple things that we wanted to discuss under new and old business. One is to continue our gaming ordinance discussion. There has been some ongoing discussion about amending the gaming ordinance to include multiple commissioners instead of a single commissioner. And so there is a draft that will take the commissioners up to 3 with a 4th as an alternate. There has, I've always, maybe not always, but recently I have certainly supported including a board of directors over the CEO as well. And so there is a draft that exists that would create a board of directors of 3 people. So if you are interested in becoming a gaming commissioner or a member of the board of directors, start to think about that. But because of the timing, with just coming on last week, I wanted personally some more time to digest. I think the vice chairman also wanted a little bit more time. And then I thought that maybe that would be a good time to kind of start to pilot what's in the procedures that we adopted, which is soliciting public comment. So I am proposing that we post the draft gaming ordinance online for the people to read and review and submit their comments if they have ideas about that. So that's the proposal. Any questions? All right, is there a motion to, oh, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Tashaqua.
I think this is a long time coming for, when we need a board of casinos. And was there anything on the gaming commissioners? I know that there were supposed to be 3 gaming commissioners. Is there anything on that? Have they come aboard yet, or?
They haven't come aboard yet, so we are going to post this for comment, and then hopefully we will adopt the ordinance at the July meeting on July 6th. The National Indian Gaming Commission will then have 45 days to approve it, and then we'll be off to the races with the commission and the board of directors.
Good news. Thank you very much.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? All right, is there a motion to post the proposed, or the draft gaming ordinance online?
I make that motion.
Has IT already set up where it's going to be posted and a place for it to be commented?
Jared?
I mean, is that, it's, okay.
All right, so he's saying yes. I have my, I guess, pick of the litter to who can be the movement here. I think I might have heard, Hazel, did you move?
Yes.
All right.
Second.
Motion to post the draft gaming ordinance online by committeewoman number 1, Hazel Tashaqua, with a second by committeeman number 4, Jordan Fox. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Abstention? Motion passes. So thank you all, and we look forward to any comments that any of you do have. The next item is IHS board clarification. In previous months, there has been some discussion about how many board members we're entitled to and who should occupy those seats. So my understanding from our work session is that the CBC would like to clarify that Rosalind Asatami is the Comanche Nation's representative on the board, and that Hazel Tashikwa is the alternate. Any questions or comments on that?
Well, let me clarify that.
Okay.
I am right now the representative, and Rosalind is not an alternate, but the second person, so that if I'm gone, if I can't make a meeting, then she will step in. I mean, she has the ability to vote, you know, and step up and take my place.
So
When I'm not there.
So we're trying to switch that? Or-
No.
Oh, we're not, you don't want to
No,
change that? Okay, so I had understood that's what we wanted to change that. Any other discussion or questions, comments?
Because Rosalind and I both attend the meetings, and so it just so happens that if I'm not there, she's going to be right there knowing exactly what's going on, so we both attend the meetings. And that's something that, not all the other tribes do, and we have been having a problem with a quorum being established, because a lot of the positions from the other tribes, they're tribal chairmen or tribal chairwoman, and if they don't have anyone to step in to take their place, and so that we lack quorum. And so I'm glad that the tribe has stepped up and has two people. I think there's only the Comanches and maybe I think of the Caddos that has the two, and so we're hoping that we'll establish,
Hopefully the others will follow suit.
a policy to do that, so that we won't have this problem, because it's been a problem since I've been on there.
Okay. Any other,
Rosalind?
oh, are you Rosalind?
I'm Rosalind.
All right, Ms. Asatami.
I just wanted to address the board to let them know that I just retired, 2 years ago now, for 31 years of service as the executive secretary there. And I took the minutes of the health board, and so I'm familiar with the, past, the history of different things that have happened. But because I was secretary, I was suppressed to not be able to, ask questions or do things. So when I was contacted by Hazel to see if I wanted to, I was more than happy, because there are a lot of things that the current tribal representatives, and the way the bylaws read is that anyone, the chairman of every tribe is automatically the board member, but they can appoint anyone to be the representative with a letter. So they would be recognized as the voter in the event of the absence of the chairman. So when Hazel approached me, I said, yes, I would like to do that. And so there's history that the current board members probably aren't aware of, because they are, elected positions. And a lot of times, like what just happened, just occurred, I believe it was in November, the president or the chairman of the health board did not get elected again. So it was in, kind of limbo, and we finally got the positions filled again, chairman and vice chair, so that someone would preside over those meetings. So I was able to, with the first meeting that I went to with Hazel, I was able to give some background input on a report that I submitted, so that y'all would be more informed of information. And, like I said, I really appreciated being appointed, because now I'm asking them questions. And they probably don't want me to be on the board, but I would appreciate you to keep me on the board. Thank you.
Mr. Tashabaw.
What day of the month do they get the IHS meet?
It's the first Thursday at 10 o'clock
Is it
of
open
the
to
month.
the public? Or
Yes.
open to the public?
So if someone couldn't hear because of the mic, the IHS board meetings are the first Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. and they're open to the public. All right, anything else on that agenda item? All right, the next agenda item is a transportation funding agreement. The program director was here, but he had to leave. But I don't think there's anything really controversial about this. It's just a tribal transportation program funding agreement. I just didn't sign it because I wanted the business committee to authorize me to sign it because it's an agreement. And even though the chairman is the authorized signatory of the tribe under the Constitution, it is the business committee that has the authority to execute leases, contracts, or permits. And so this is an agreement, so it's a contract. So I just wanted the business committee's authorization. But as far as I know, it's just a pretty standard BIA funding agreement for our transportation. Any questions?
I make a motion to authorize the chairman to sign off on the agreement.
All right, there is a motion by Committeeman Number 2, Ross Carrara, to authorize the chairman to execute the Tribal Transportation Program Agreement.
I second it.
Second by the Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Tipicani. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Abstentions? All right, motion passes. And I'll sign that right now before I forget. So that's the end of our agenda that we have. Does anyone have any other business for the tribe? Ms. Burgess?
I have a question in regards. I was here 10 years ago. I'll still be here 10 years from now. So with the current election going on and all of the issues that came about with the tribal administrator candidate, I did pose the question to some of the CBC, and then I did pose the question to some of the election board, and no one could give me a straight answer. So as an employee of the nation, if you get a DUI, the termination is immediate. With that being said, the tribal administrator candidate is to be hired by the tribal council. That's all of us here. And they are allowed fringe benefits, insurance, driving our vehicle, fuel, we send them on trips, all this, that, every thing that a Comanche Nation employee would get. With that being said, that individual would have to fall under the HR policies and still would be terminated under that policy. How is that gonna work?
Mr. McBride?
As a practical matter, it creates a lot of issues for someone to not be able to drive or have a driver's license and function as a tribal administrator.
Can you speak to the higher terminology in the Constitution and how that interplays with the human resources policies?
The tribal administrator under the policies and procedures of the nation is not an employee. The tribal administrator, an employee is actually defined within the policies and procedures. And it defines an employee as someone who is subordinate to the tribal administrator. And therefore, it's our analysis that they are not an employee under the policies and procedures of the nation.
What does the Constitution say?
A second basis is there are qualifications under the Constitution for the tribal administrator, and they're quite specific. And recently, they were amended again, just within the past year. And it's our analysis that you cannot add additional qualifications, and specifically the tribal handbook, the policies and procedures as additional qualifications for a candidate for tribal administrator. And there is case law from other jurisdictions. One in particular is the Sac and Fox Nation. They dealt with this issue with Dora Young versus Election Board back in 2001, and there was a decision from their tribal Supreme Court in 2004 that said the Election Board could not create additional qualifications that went beyond the Constitution for a candidate to run for political office. And that is another example that we relied upon to find that a candidate can't be disqualified on the basis of policies and procedures. Now, in the event someone is elected and they become a convicted felon, then that could be grounds for removal of a candidate, certainly. But that's a different issue than what's presented here.
Mr. Cole.
I have a question. Say after the election is over, if said candidate does get elected and all the charges go to court and that now tribal attorney or tribal administrator is found guilty of those charges, what happens then? Are they then removed? If so, do we have to have an entirely new special general counsel to replace that tribal administrator? And if so, how much is that going to cost the tribe?
First, I think I answered the first part of your question earlier. There could be removal. As I recall, there was a special general council meeting. It was on or about 2015, as I recall, and it involved a previous tribal administrator, and the general council passed a resolution that the business committee could remove a tribal administrator. And I would defer specifically to those that keep records, Shandell or others, if there is a copy of that resolution somewhere, and if I need to have my recollection refreshed. But that is my recollection, that there is an existing general council resolution that delegates the power to the business committee in that circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
What it would cost, I don't know, but I don't think that it would take that much legal resources or business committee resources to deal with that situation, should it arise.
Ms. Dossie.
And, I was the executive director of the Gaming Commission, and so I enforce policies. And I get it, the Constitution says that you hire and the people select that individual. But how can you, as a tribal administrator, enforce policies that you're not going to follow either? So your HR policies is contradicting. And that's a problem, because I don't see leading our directors and making them, well, you have to do as I say, not as I do. That's what we're telling them. And that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not consistent. That's not holding people accountable. And I think as the CBC members, that's something that needs to be fixed, because this is where the chaotic comes within our tribe. And we're picking and choosing what those policies apply to. What applies to him may not apply to her, and that's not fair. And you're losing the support and the trust in the people in our tribe and the way we're leading. So if the tribal administrator is elected, whoever wins on the 15th, once those votes are counted, she's still hired, he's still hired, he still gets benefits just like, or she still gets benefits. They're on payroll. So please make that clear, because it's not. I get what you're saying as the attorney, but it's like I'm exempt, but he isn't. And that's not fair.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments? Okay, Mr., is it Suminski?
Yeah, that's 1.1 trillion on this. We've been cleared by the USDI, U.S. Attorney, Secretary of Interior, President of the Governor. So if y'all want this compact, it's $1 billion tribe in year 2. Diana, you said it yourself. You're going to become $1 billion tribe, and every one of your names will be on that stadium. I'm 72 years old, and I'd like to see Ariana Grande in concert before I go. Just before Mom died.
Mr. Carrara has a question for you.
Yeah.
No, for the
Oh,
tribal attorney.
sorry, go ahead, Mr. Carrara.
You were talking about imposing, further qualifications as unconstitutional. I'm curious, how does the position description play into that? Are there any duties and responsibilities that he can't, or that a person can't fulfill if they don't have a license? Is there any requirement in there, in the position description?
It's a serious problem. If somebody can't drive to work, will they have to hire a driver? Who's going to pay for that? It is a serious problem.
I'm just
The
saying,
Comanche Nation's not paying for that, by the way.
I mean, can that person fulfill their duties and responsibilities for the role?
That's a serious question. Absolutely.
I know it's a serious question, that's why I'm asking it. So what's your answer?
No.
So maybe it's something that can be addressed in the election policy?
Yes.
State that a candidate that in the future, actually present, that can be addressed, in the event that this should happen again, or in the capacity of, because there's nothing in our election ordinance or our constitution that states if you're elected official and you get a felony for anything, the only reason you guys can get removed is if it's with money, embezzlement. That's automatic, but it does not state that for, in this case, a DUI. So it's the same thing. We have not addressed those issues ever. In this, we have had individuals that have had a record of such and run for office, but they were again eligible, and now, but that brings us to here. That their requirements were met according to the Constitution and the election ordinance. It's just, once they were qualified and now, then the trouble they got into trouble. So that's not addressed. So maybe that's something we need to address in the future.
I think it needs to be addressed.
Mr. Ramos.
Future.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe there's, why does that not surprise me, Ms. Burgess? If I'm not mistaken, I believe there is a code of conduct for all CBC members or all officials or even employees of the tribe. There is a code of conduct. And I think as the tribal officials, we should always hold ourselves to a higher standard. I think a lot of Mr. Booz, and he's my friend, and it's unfortunate. But we also do have to hold ourselves to a higher standard and integrity. And yes, I think some of this stuff probably should be addressed, but it does put us in a conundrum. But yes, but I think that there is a code of conduct with tribal officials and with those that lead. And we have to set that example. I know I am myself to a higher standard, in my position. I would expect the consequences for not abiding by what I'm supposed to, or what I should be. And I've been disciplined on that, so.
Well, I believe that, you know, in my opinion, is that the tribal administrator position, in the past, the salary has always been voted on by the people. But here recently, it hasn't been on the budget, the tribal administrator position, as well as, and so now we have to realize that, are they an employee? And is it because that was the reason why they took it off, because they're considered an employee? And now we're finding out that they're not considered an employee, so now we have to address this issue, whether the general counsel determines how much that salary will be and that budget. So these are issues the benefits, you know? Elected officials don't receive those benefits. So these are questions that needs to be asked and maybe brought back to the general counsel for clarification. Because in the past, what happened is that they were an employee of the nation. And it wasn't until, you know, someone took out a petition, got signatures, and it was included in our Constitution that the general counsel hires the tribal administrator at the general council meeting. And then all that has gone a different route since 2018. And so there we have it.
And at least as far as that budget goes, I mean, I'm definitely going to push for that to be approved by the tribal council,
Yes.
the salary.
Yes.
It should be.
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Asatami.
Yes, you said you didn't know how much an election would cost. What about the machine itself? Do you know how much that costs? Attorney?
The machine or the election, I'm sorry, I do not.
Okay. Okay,
Election
Charlotte, do you know?
How much does an election cost? How much does an election cost? And do we own the machines or do we rent them?
We rent them from AES out of New Mexico, so that also costs money because we put them up, pay for the travel and all of that. And the last time that it was said, it runs around 70,000. Yeah,
70.
around that much per election. Yeah, that was, well, yeah, all of that, also the independent tabulator and all, there's a lot of money that goes into it. But the issue is we have an outside source, so we won't have those accusations of fixing machines because they aren't our machines. That's why we use AES for that also.
Did you say 70,000?
Is that per
Yes.
machine?
Per election.
Or
I was
total?
told per election.
Total.
This was from the last election we were told. By Anita, who really does more of the budget than our chairman of the election board.
On the, well, just information that's public, when Justin was stopped, it says that count one was driving under the influence, and it says in the influence of alcohol, second and subsequent. And subsequent apparently means a crime that a person has been convicted of before. So how much more concrete documentation is needed for CBC to say, you know, why do this? It's going to cost us $70,000 if he's actually, when he goes to court July 1, we're going to do that again, $70,000.
Mr. Attorney, what is the Oklahoma statute on driving under the influence first, second, third charge, whatever it may be, is there a limit or a minimum?
I don't know the particulars of the DUI statute, but my general understanding is typically a first offense, driving under the influence, is a misdemeanor. Second and subsequent ones are felonies. And they get progressively more severe in terms of the range of punishment thereafter. Like second and third offenses can land you, multiple years in prison, up to 10 years in prison.
So is it accurate to say it's presumptive that it will be a felony charge?
Yes.
Is it presumptive that it would be a felony conviction?
It requires a felony conviction to trigger the prohibition in the Constitution for qualification for a candidate. And the candidate has
So
not...
is it presumptive that he will be convicted?
Every person is considered innocent until proven guilty in
I understand that, but
court of law.
I'm saying presumptive. I'm just talking like an attorney, so. And you're answering like one, so.
It's my job, sir.
Ms. Naya had a comment.
No, since the election board was also mentioned, we did have a new election policy put into place. But because of this past election, there have been a lot of gray areas, like regarding some of the board members wanted a runoff between. And I feel if we did have a subcommittee of Hazel and Mr. Tipicani to help us rewrite the election policy, but I feel we need to revisit that based on this past election, because like this situation, it needs to be put into the policy if a candidate potentially breaks the law, or in the meantime, in this grace period in between, if there's a runoff. So I would appreciate if we could get that subcommittee going again and maybe revise this new policy so we won't have this problem again.
I think that's a great idea personally. I mean, I think it's one thing for us as a CBC to make a mistake. It's the worst thing to not learn from a mistake. And if a policy isn't working, if a procedure isn't working, if an ordinance isn't working, let's debrief, let's figure out where it went wrong, let's change it, and let's try again next year. Because everyone knows this election cycle has not been smooth, to say the least.
I agree.
Back in the day when Keith was trying to share that, he got stopped through year one for when the stop sign DUI. And he didn't have these homes, he got to keep his office. That's not the first time we've had a situation of this type.
Yeah, Mr.
I just want to
Cashman.
change the subject a little bit. I just want to put this out, I think a couple of meetings ago, we were talking about Finley and Cook trying to go away from them, and I just want to keep that on the top. Mr. Tipicani, you remember the conversation we had about that, and are we still?
There was a resolution that was passed to do an RFP.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Yes.
For that, yes.
I must have missed that meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
All right, before we, I know Mr. Szyminski had some stuff he wanted to say. So before we do that, does anyone else have anything else they want to say on this election issue? All right, Mr. Carrara.
I think, what the travel attorney has said, it's not a constitutional violation, but it brings into question, we'd have to change the Constitution, or we're going to have to change the policies, because alcohol abuse, driving under the influence, it's a huge problem. People should be able to get treatment. It shouldn't destroy their lives where they're immediately fired from the tribe. There's a road to redemption. I don't think one of them is terminating them immediately. There should be steps that they must take, but I think that is an important step to addressing this issue, because if that were addressed, this wouldn't be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, I think part of the problem that everyone's honing on is it's like the policy should be more forgiving and lenient for the employees and more strict for the administrator, because that's a position that should be held to a higher standard, but yet we're in the inverse position.
Yes,
And that's the problem. So we recognize that's the problem.
yes.
All right, Mr. Saminsky, tell us what you have to say.
Yeah, everything is looking good. It's up to y'all now. What you can see on your desk is 1.1 trillion. Anything that you ask for, any grant you ask for, you're going to get it. We've been cleared by the OSBI, Secretary of Interior, Governor, President. They all promised me that the game will end with this compact. Basically, what the mafia was doing, they were running it and playing us and cutting our throats. So that game ends with this compact. Deanna, here's your chance. You'll be $1 billion tribe in year 2. I'm 72 years old. I want to see Ariana Grande in concert before I go. Your names will be on that stadium. I'm 4 miles northwest of both them hotels. I know it's greed. Your resort is 160 acres, $5.5 billion in revenue. The Choctaw Resort is 77 acres, $3.2 billion in revenue. I know it's greed, and it's the greed for that. But that's what I'm trained to do. Right now, I'm working on forensic computer. So it's up to y'all. Y'all got the football now. You know who to contact. And I'll get in there and sit down with every one of you and give you the go on what's devolved, why it's so lucrative. You're looking at Branson or Laughlin. So you're looking at billions of dollars in revenue.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any thing they'd like to discuss? All right, Ms. Burgess.
It's in regards to the tax commission. Comanche tribal members that are new business owners that are required to get a business license through the tax commission, and they are automatically being taxed 3% and whatnot. I don't know the status of that. Is there a exemption possibly, or could there possibly be an exemption for Comanche tribal members that are business owners and getting I guess it kind of sounds like they're asking, could they get the exemption and not be taxed at 3%? Because, starting out as a new business owner, that's hard already, and just having to pay that as an additional thoughts.
Seems perfectly reasonable to me. I mean, I think it's something we'll have to go through the process on, obviously, looking at the act, what it is now, talking about what it means to be a small business versus a big business, new business versus old business, and have to define those. But, that's part of why, I was really passionate about these procedures, was so that we could involve the public in those discussions, by posting things and soliciting comments. But, thank you for raising the issue. I wasn't even aware of that the business license tax was on a percentage basis.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Chairman stated. What we don't want to get into, and you're absolutely correct, we need to have some type of, time period on when we do start taxing on trust property with tribally owned businesses. What we want to make sure to not run into is the double taxation. I know we discussed that Thursday. So it is something that can be done. It's just a matter of making sure we get get in there and discuss it.
And make it happen.
All right. Unless anyone's jumping up and down, is there a motion to adjourn our June meeting?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Committee Woman number 3, Alice Casnavoid, second by Vice Chairwoman Diana Doyavai-Sovo. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Abstentions, we are adjourned. Thank you.